Good morning. It is my honor, my pleasure, to call the 134th Convention of the Maryland State Firefighters Association to order. Our safety message.
Good morning, everyone. I'm the safety chair. I'm doing the morning message. So get your son on today because it doesn't look like it's going to be here tomorrow. That's what everybody's telling me. It's what the weatherman says. I've already talked to the chaplains, and they're working on getting sun for tomorrow. But most importantly, while we're in this facility, if we get an automatic alarm or something in this building, please vacate. We had problems about a year ago where we were in here and we all sat here and looked at each other and didn't do what we were supposed to do, but we all know what we're supposed to do, so please do it. We're supposed to be leading by example. Lastly, from what I understand, there was no issues with safety issues during the parade, which is a good thing. Normally I speak about that tomorrow, but obviously, I missed that opportunity. But seriously, just take care of yourselves this week. Have a good time. I'll speak with you again in tomorrow, but if we have an incident here, please vacate the building. If there's an incident in the city, let the city agency take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. I will now introduce Chief Chaplain John Long for invocation.
Please join me in prayer. Father, we thank you for this day. We ask for your presence with us as we celebrate the 134th Annual Convention and Conference. Father, we thank you for President Charles J. Simpson, Jr. and for President Joan Kramer. Father, we also thank you for all the men and women who dedicate their time, knowledge, and skills to serve the MSFA and the LA MSFA. We pray for our brothers and sisters who are not here, serving their communities, answering the calls for service. Protect them, guide them, give them the wisdom and skills and abilities to handle what is put in front of them. Shield them from the dangers and return them safely to their loved ones. Father, we ask all this in your holy name. Amen. Will the past presidents please take your positions? Okay. I'm just doing what the script says. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the President of the Maryland State Firefighters Association, Charles J. Simpson, Jr., and the President of the Ladies Auxiliary to the Maryland State Firefighters Association, Joan Kramer.
Take your seats. Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the music. And I'd ask you to remain seated through the entrance of the pipes and drums. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated, but welcome the Maryland Fire Rescue Service's pipes and drums. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for the Maryland Fire Rescue Service's Pipes and Drums. And now, if you would, please rise, if you are able, for the presentation of the colors by the Combined Maryland Fire Service Honor Guard. Our national anthem this morning will be sung by Mr. Ronald Penhollow.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Hold. At this time, I'll invite the presidents to the podium, and President Joan Kramer will present the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A hearty thank you to the pipes and drums and to the Westminster Band. Great performance, great show. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been my pleasure during the past year to have a wonderful relationship with the Ladies Auxiliary of the Maryland State Firefighters Association. These individuals have done a tremendous performance in their duties, not just this year, but in the many years that they've been in existence. This past year, I've had the honor of working with Joan Kramer, the president of the Ladies Auxiliary, and I've initiated a resolution thanking her for the work that she's done during the past year. So be it resolved on the 22nd day of June 2026 that the Maryland State Firefighters Association formally extends its thanks and gratitude to the Ladies Auxiliary of the Maryland State Firefighters Association, President Joan Kramer, for her years of service and exemplary leadership. Be it further resolved that the copy of this foregoing resolution be entered into the minutes of the 134th Annual Convention and Conference of the Maryland State Firefighters Association. Thank you, Joan. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. What a surprise. I wasn't expecting it. Thank you.
Okay.
This was wonderful. I wasn't expecting it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
What's next?
Okay, lovely lady, you can come out this way. You have the mayor of Ocean City, the Honorable Rick Meehan.
I now have the pleasure to introduce the mayor of Ocean City, the Honorable Richard Meehan.
Mr. President, thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Well, on behalf of the Marin City Council and all the citizens of Ocean City, I'd like to welcome you to Ocean City and let you know we very much appreciate you returning to Ocean City year after year. I know this convention is your 134th annual convention, and I believe over 70 of those have been held here in Ocean City. And I want to thank you for that. It's very important to us to have you here. I know I've told you before, I'm an old school mayor, and I remember very well and still believe that, you know, the summer season really starts when the Maryland State Firefighters Association comes to town. And it's no different this year in 2026. But thanks for bringing great weather. And, you know, I want to thank you all for everything that you do. We all serve in public service, and what we do is important to so many people. And what you do as an organization and as individual companies is so important to your individual communities and to the state of Maryland. And volunteerism gets more difficult all the time because of all the other things that we have going on in our lives. But for you to take the time and the commitment to serve our communities is something significantly important, and I want to thank you all very, very much for your service. While I'm here today, I do want to recognize your leadership. And all good organizations have good leaders. And conventions such as this don't just happen. They happen as a result of good planning, good leadership putting it together, good committees, so that you can all be here today for this convention. With that being said, I would like to make a presentation to the president of the Maryland State Firefighters Association. And what I have here today, is a key to the city. And when I presented the key to the city, it's not just for me, it's for all our residents, our government, and really represents each and every one of you here today. And in recognition of your service to the Maryland State Firefighters Association and your commitment, I'd like to present this key to the city to Charles J. Simpson, Jr. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
You're very, very welcome. I also have one for the president of the and I also understand and realize that there's more than one president, and they represent this organization as well. And for all that Joan Kramer has done for this organization and her commitment through the years to the Maryland State Firefighters Association, I would like to also present this key to the city to Joan Kramer, President, Maryland State Firefighters Association Auxiliary. You're very welcome.
I wasn't expecting this. Thank you so
You're
much.
very, very
Thank
welcome.
you.
Somebody taking a picture? I guess not. You want to get out here and get a picture?
Yes.
Why don't we walk out?
so don't run away. At the same time, you know, it's really been a pleasure. We've been meeting here for many, many years, and it's been just great, the amount of cooperation and the work that the city of, or the town of Ocean City does for the Maryland State Firefighters Association. That said, a resolution for you, for the service that you have presented to us, and not just the service, but the hospitality and the kindness that the town of Ocean City has presented. So whereas the Maryland State Firefighters Association is celebrating its 134th annual convention and conference, and whereas the town of Ocean City has been the host of the Maryland State Firefighters Annual Convention for decades, and whereas the hospitality demonstrated by the town of Ocean City and its employees and its citizens has been without equal, and whereas the MSFA convention serves as the unofficial beginning of the Ocean City summer, and we've heard that many times, okay? Whereas due to the leadership of the mayor of Ocean City, Mayor Rick Meehan, has been instrumental in fostering the harmonious relationship between the MSFA and the town of Ocean City. Therefore, be it resolved on the 22nd day of June, 2026, that the Maryland State Firefighters Association formally extends its thanks and gratitude to the Mayor, Rick Meehan, for his many years of dedication to the MSFA and for its invaluable assistance in our annual convention. Be it further resolved on the 22nd day, June 2026, that a copy of the foregoing resolution be entered into the minutes of the 134th Annual Convention and the Conference of the Maryland State Firefighters Association. Signed by Charles J. Simpson, Jr., President. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you again. And before I leave, I always like to try to tell a little story about Ocean City, or something I think maybe everybody here can relate to. I know many of you have been visiting, and as visitors are part of this convention for many years. And if you've been up on our beach, and you know we have a beautiful beach, and it also becomes a rest area on occasions for many of the mammals that travel north and south off our shores. And it's not uncommon for one of those mammals, particularly seals, to stop at our beach. Sometimes they're injured, or sometimes they're just there actually to take a rest from their long travels. And we work with the Baltimore Aquarium if in fact there are injured mammals out there, and they work with us as we rescue those particular creatures. However, we do have those that just stop by to take a rest. And when that happens, if there's a seal up on the beach, the Ocean City Beach Patrol goes out and they put a three-sided, one of those red ribbon type of fences around the seal so that it won't be bothered by all the tourists and the visitors and everybody that come up to take a look at the seal. And it's open towards the ocean, but it's enclosed on three sides. And in one particular day, I was told this story recently by a Beach Patrol member. They had a seal on the beach, and they put that three-sided fence up. And the seal was out there for quite a while. And visitors would come, you know, periodically and stop and take a look and watch the seal. And it's really one of those things of nature that's just fascinating. And on one occasion, after the seal had been there for a little while, one of our visitors walked up to the lifeguard that was monitoring this and said, you know, asked him about it. And he said, well, it's a seal stopping to take a rest, and this does happen on occasion. And this area is a protected area for the seal while he's here. And the visitor said, you know, I think that is absolutely terrific. And she said, but how does the seal know to swim into this fenced off area? You can't make that stuff up, but it happens. And our visitors are fabulous, and they're inquisitive, and they want to know what's going on, and we welcome all of them, as we welcome you. I hope you enjoy your time in Ocean City. Thank you again so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again in 2027. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, you talk about the rest areas. Please watch what you fill this with in those rest areas. But something for you to remember our
Thank you, sir.
convention with.
Thank you very
very much.
Thank you. Enjoy, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you.
At this time, we'd like to introduce our guests from out of state. It's really such an honor, a pleasure to have these individuals from other areas come and see how we, as the Maryland State Firefighters Association, honor our firefighters, our EMS people, and those that work on behalf of supporting safety for the citizens of Maryland. With us today from Delaware, I have Brian Reeder, Second Vice President of the Delaware Firemen's Association. Elmer Steele, Secretary and past President. Jay Jones, Executive Manager and past President. Steve Austin, past President, one that's been a great friend of the MSFA for many, many, many years. Steve, welcome. Ted Wallace, past President. From Virginia, Jeff Flippo, past President. From the Cumberland Valley Volunteer Firefighters Association, again, Steve Austin, one that we hear all the time, Director and past President. Justin Gerhardt, Director. Steve Hefner, past President. Gene Worthington, our own past President and past President of Cumberland Valley. Hobie Howell, past President. Dave Lewis, their junior past President of the MSFA. And our own Sam Mann, Chaplain, MSFA and Cumberland Valley. Welcome all. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today. Another one of those pleasures and honors that I have as president of the MSFA is every convention, the current president has the honor of presenting or recognizing those that have been extremely active and a benefit to the association. With us today are two individuals, and as you've seen, the book is dedicated, our convention book is dedicated to. I have with us today our past president, Doyle Cox, secretary of the Maryland State Firefighters Association, who is dedicated in the book. With us also, I have Mitch Voke, our financial secretary with the MSFA. Mitch joined the volunteer fire departments through the to Jarrettsville Volunteer Fire Company in 1972. He's been extremely active in all his roles with the volunteer service through that time, not only serving as an CRT, but many fire and other EMS roles. He joined the MSFA early and became our financial secretary. In addition, he's the chairperson of our Ways and Means. And those that have had the pleasure of purchasing and winning from our $10,000 lottery raffle know just exactly what we're talking about. Thank you, Mitch. It's an honor to have you with us and an honor to have you on the convention. Doyle Cox. Doyle is a member of Prince Frederick Volunteer Fire Company. Has been a member for over 50 years. Doyle joined the MSFA basically back in '74 and been pretty active with us ever since. Not only active in many capacities and committees, but he served as president in 2011, 10 and 11. So he was president of the Maryland Firemen's Association in 2002. Many other capacities and many other duties, serving on our executive chair and so on. Doyle, again, pleasure. Thank you very much.
Center stage, take both books, give them each a book, center stage, and have a picture.
Okay.
Sounded like cheers, yeah, right. President in the center, books on either side. Put the president in the center, books on either side. Nice picture. You guys are a lost cause. Let's go. I know. Lost cause. Good God. Like you've never done this before. Okay. Do your thing with the Westlake Volunteer Fire Department. See if there's any in the audience. Bring them up. If not, tell the story.
Another one of the great accomplishments this year. We hear so much about how the volunteer service is kind of dwindling. We're having some issues and problems. It's really a pleasure this year to announce that we now have 348 volunteer fire companies that are members of the Maryland State Firefighters Association. By saying that, you may have noticed that we've gone up one, and that's a really big positive move, a very big plus for the association. Is there any representatives here today from the Westlake Volunteer Fire Department? Westlake Volunteer Fire Department was created this year. It was Station 12 in Charles County. It became a member of the MSFA April 8th, 2026. Congratulations to anyone from Westlake. It's a pleasure to have you on board.
Okay, let's call the past presidents and please stand and be recognized.
Do you have a list?
No.
I don't either. Okay. At this time, I'd ask the past presidents of the Maryland State Firefighters Association to stand up. Unfortunately, I can't see you from here. We have a great turnout down there, and thank you all for what you have done and what you continue to do in supporting the association. It's really a pleasure to see you today. Thank you very much.
Now, will the ladies auxiliary past presidents stand up?
I see. Okay, the Ladies Auxiliary to the Maryland State Firefighters Association. Could I have their past presidents please rise? Again, what an honor and a pleasure it is to see you with us today. I know that you'll be leaving shortly to go to your meeting, but we certainly appreciate you being here at the start of ours. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're ready to begin our keynote address. Are you ready for that? You have the
Okay.
script there? All right.
Who's that?
This is it.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to introduce Fire Chief John A. Donnelly, the District of Columbia Fire Department, for our keynote address.
What? What about it? Huh? Yeah. All right, you got it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Distracted.
Chief, welcome.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. There we go. Good morning, everyone. It is an honor to be here. This is a sort of full circle moment for me. 44 years ago was the first convention I came to as a volunteer at the Allentown Road Volunteer Fire Department in Prince George's County. A couple of you here, I think. And I owe a lot to the Maryland Fire Service. I wouldn't be where I was without all of that experience, without all the people that supported me, and without all the people that came through it that work for the DC Fire Department. So that's a good thing. It's also 34 years that I've been with DC today. So I'm honored to be here. It feels like a good day. A couple things as we start. I'm John Donnelly. I should have introduced myself. And I'm the chief of the DC Fire and EMS Department. I was the initial incident was an incident commander on the plane crash that happened in the Potomac River in January of 2025. And I'm here to talk a little bit about the lessons we learned, about what our experiences were. But more important than that, I'm here to make sure people remember. As I've dealt with the families, I have made a commitment to them to do everything that we can do to help them recover, and part of their recovery is making sure that air travel is safe. So we start out with the memory of the passengers on both American Airlines and Pat 25 that died, and I'd like to take a moment of remembrance. The second reason I give this story and tell this story is our responders from across the National Capital Region did an amazing job. They showed up in the worst weather, under the worst conditions, and performed at the highest levels. And I will forever be in awe of what they did. I imagine there's some responders in the room today, and if you're here, please stand up. And I know many of your organizations were there as well, so thank you. A couple things before we start. I saw we were giving out the Maryland State Firemen's Association peer support cards at the beginning. My voice may crack at different times during this. I have some emotional moments. My therapist says that's just fine, and it should be just fine for all of you to have those feelings. It was a traumatic experience, so that's normal. The second part of it is that that day was amazing for a lot of reasons, but it really was amazing for the people that were there, and we just don't want to forget that. I'm going to jump into the presentation now. So DC Fire and EMS is about 2,300 employees. We cover 63 square miles. We're part of the National Capital Region. We're a busy department, 220,000 calls a year, $410 million budget this year. One of the 10 busiest departments in the country. So we deal with a lot. Our January 2025 was a very busy time for us. We had 3 national special security events, the counting of the vote on January 6th, President Carter's funeral, and then the inauguration. All of those events, the smallest one had 10,000 people under the response plan for DC Fire and EMS. Up through the inauguration, it had 20,000. So this plane crash, in context, wasn't even the biggest event we had in January. But the good thing about having those other events in front of it is it involved a lot of the same partners. We planned together, we worked together through all of that, and that really helped when the no-notice event happened and we had to respond. So I'm forever grateful for those events, even as hard as they are, but they do help you get together. We had major weather, a long snowstorm, a cold snap that affected all of our responders as well. We had a line of duty death of Lieutenant Robert Haney from Rescue Squad 2 in the middle of all of this, and we had to, we did his funeral in the days after the plane crash. So that was a big burden on our department and for our responders. Lieutenant Haney was an instrumental member in a lot of our special operations training, and the people that were doing the bulk of the work were deeply affected by his passing. January alone, we had 18,000 responses. We had two civilian fire deaths. We don't generally average one a month, so 2 in a month is a lot for us. We delivered our 200th unit of whole blood, and you'll hear some whole blood later in the day discussions, but I put that in there to say that DC Fire and EMS isn't only the fire department in the nation's capital. We're the 3rd largest healthcare provider. That means that we do a lot of different things, and we come together in a lot of different ways. And sort of at the end of January, when we thought it was all over and everybody was taking a break and letting their breath out, January 29th, the plane crash happened. Out of the blue, nobody's expecting it. It happens at 8 o'clock at night. We get a lot of credit for a good response to that, maybe even a model response, depending on who you talk to. That didn't happen because of anything that happened that night. That happened because of a commitment to regional coordination. In 1982, Air Florida crashes into the 14th Street Bridge. Response is quick, good. At the same time, DC Fire and EMS responds to a subway derailment in a tunnel, resulting in fatalities. So it's in the middle of a snowstorm. Very similar in a lot of ways to the event of 2025, but the difference is that we had regional coordination. The fire chiefs got together, regional leadership got together and developed a mutual aid agreement. That mutual aid agreement stays in place today. It's important. It matters. It's a commitment to support each other. Over time, that has evolved to deal with radio channel discussions, standard operating procedures, unit numbering, CAD to CAD sharing, all of those things. So it starts in 1982. But in Air Florida, or in 9/11, that response is tested again. And that response is roughly the same area. It is a good response for a lot of reasons, and it's a credit to the region, it's a credit to the fire departments, but there's still room for growth. There's room for growth in our mutual aid for our emergency managers, our police departments, all the other support functions so they can coordinate. And if you read the 9/11 After Action Report, Chapter 9 talks about the response. Most of that chapter, multiple pages, is to New York and their lack of coordination and how that may or may not have affected the outcome of the incident, but it talks a lot about that. The part for the National Capital Region is about 2 paragraphs, and it says that they have a culture of support, and they supported each other, and notably, the lack of problems between responders was significant compared to New York. That's pretty good, and that's what we built the response in 2025 on. So let's talk about the location. If you look at the map, the left side of the map is Virginia. Virginia's state boundary is the high tide line on the Potomac River, and that's important, at least for this story. The bottom of the map, below the Wilson Bridge that crosses over the river there, is Maryland running up at an angle, and then there's DC. The airport, let me see if I can make this laser work. Yeah, it's too far. The airport is sort of in the center on the Virginia shoreline, and directly across from it is Bowling Joint Air Force Base, or Bowling Anacostia Joint Air Force Base. And the night of the crash, it was 34 degrees in the air, 34 degrees in the water. There was ice on the river that had been broken up by a ship that had come through earlier, but we had ice accumulating on the shoreline, in our docks, and in places that would allow access, so it's complicated. The crash site water is 4 to 12 feet deep. It's mostly sandy bottom with some silty bottom. The visibility initially was pretty good for the divers. The wind was blowing hard that night, so ice was moving around. It was hard to keep boats in place. It was brutal conditions for the responders that were out there on the river, and it was cold for the people on the shore. So this site is actually really interesting when you think about it. There is a series of airplane crashes on the site that should have given us a better opportunity to test our responses. We'd never done this drill in the 34 years that I'd been around DC Fire and EMS. So we've done a lot of other drills. We know mass casualty, but we'd never done this drill. So 1949, Eastern Airlines Flight 537 collides with a fighter jet as it approaches from the south to the runway. That crash results in multiple deaths. The pilot of the air crash of the fighter jet is the only one that survives. It results in the closure of Bolling Air Force Base. If you read the headlines in the newspapers from the time, it's really the same article that you have today. Why was a military aircraft in the flight path of a civilian aircraft? So that comes up. History repeats itself. It's an interesting fact. So that crash was right there at the foot of the runway. The second crash is Air Florida, 1982. It crashes into the 14th Street Bridge, snowstorm, very similar night. 1987 in the Washington Channel, a helicopter doing some filming crashes into the channel, resulting in 3 deaths. September 11th at the Pentagon, right there, right off the river. Life Evac 2 crashes into the Wilson Bridge, which is incidentally in Prince George's County there. In 2005, in the middle of the night, there's a crane up. They're doing some work on the bridge. It crashes in. There are survivors. They have to be found in the water and rescued quickly, and there are fatalities as well. And then there's the Potomac River air crash. So some could say this is a very predictable event and something we should have trained for. While we trained for other pieces of it, we never trained for this. And that does come up a little bit in the command discussion later. The interesting part about the response, hang on, listen to this for a minute.
Pass 25, get the CRJ in flight. Pass 25, pass one to CRJ.
I just saw a fireball and then it was just gone. So I haven't seen anything since they hit the river, but it was a CRJ and a helicopter that hit. I would say maybe a half mile off the approach end of 33.
Crash, crash, crash. This is alert 3. Crash, crash, crash.
Fireboat 3 priority. I've got the aircraft down in the river. It's south of marker 11. I'm monitoring Mike 1. The fireboat is reporting an aircraft down in the water. They're requesting all land-based units report to the area.
So that's the crash. Interesting thing before we get into my particular story, the crash starts with the airport response. The voice you hear saying crash, crash, crash is the control tower, ringing the crash alert in the airport fire station, which also rings at the DC Fireboat, the DC Harbor Police Harbor Patrol, and the U.S. Park Police helicopter, the Eagle. So the initial response to that is all of those units. It is a response led by the airport. The battalion chief there is the initial incident commander. The other jurisdictions come and fall in part of it, and that response has been built over the years. The fireboat coming is specifically an answer to the Air Florida crash. So that's the initial response. That's what it looks like. For me, the story starts earlier that evening. I was off duty. Hang on a second. Oh, we got. I had been at a dinner in Alexandria. I was driving across, I had driven across the 14th Street Bridge at about 8 o'clock, or I guess Yeah, 8 o'clock. I thought as I drove over it, man, it looks cold out there. I live in D.C. I got up to the top of D.C., and I heard the fireboat as I pulled up in front of my house call in that they were going to the airport for an alert. Because because the initial alert comes straight from the tower, it doesn't go through the 911 center. And it is normal for our fireboat to just call in that they're responding on the call. Normally, I don't pay a lot of attention to that. But something made me sit in the car for a minute and listen. And that was at roughly 8:49. At 8:53, the fireboat comes back and says, hey, we're having trouble getting through on the airport radio. Something's happened. Go ahead and start the water rescue assignment. And a special operations chief. And that caught my attention. I'm like, okay, that's not normal. What I also didn't know is that our 911 center had been inundated with 911 calls. They got 40 calls in about 30 seconds reporting a plane crash. So they also dispatched an assignment. Now the plane and the helicopter land in D.C., but the initial response is from the airport. So at this point, we're listening, we've got an assignment going, and I'm trying to sort out what's going on and what it is in my head. I haven't even started toward the scene. So I stayed in the car for a minute thinking, as we all do sometimes to minimize the call. How many of you remember on 9/11 looking up at the sky when you heard a plane hit the tower and saying, how did some plane fly into the tower in this beautiful, clear weather? Anybody? Yeah. I know I did. And then when I said, oh, a plane hit it, it must be a Cessna. That's not a jet. And then you just keep seeing the information and getting the information to realize it. So I had a little bit of that going on. I was thinking, well, okay, a helicopter crash, that's something we can handle. It's not that bad. And our initial report, for D.C. at least, was that it was a helicopter crash. So the response is going. At 8:57 hours, the fireboat calls back and says they got an odor of jet fuel at one of the buoy markers, I think it's buoy marker 11 in the river. And I'm like, okay, it's still interesting. And I start to drive toward the scene just because I'm not sure what's going to happen, and I'm curious. And I didn't have anything else to do. At 8:59, 10 minutes after the initial response, the fireboat reports back that they're on the scene, they have a jet wing, and they have 4 victims, and they're searching. And the battalion chief's response was spot on. He says, I thought we were going for a helicopter crash. Is that a plane? And the fireboat comes back and says, yeah, it was. It's a plane. And at that point, we began to piece together on our side what it was. I think the initial response at the airport understood what it was. So there's some disconnect there that shows up. It doesn't take long to sort out that it's a commercial aircraft. And at that point, I begin to respond to the scene. And the first thing I do is call the police chief. I call the police chief because the Harbor Patrol has responsibility for the river. They're the authority on the river at that point. The Coast Guard at that time of night isn't there, their immediate response. And the police chief's relatively new. I wanted to make sure she understood how big a problem this was going to be for both of us. And she said, where are you going, Chief? I said, well, I'm going to Bowling, where the DC Fire and EMS has their first command post set up. And I think we have the command post there. And she said, well, I'll meet you there. And I continued to the scene. I also called the mayor to let her know about the event, and she asked me to keep her informed. And en route to the scene, I got phone calls from the White House Situation Room trying to figure out what's going on. You got to remember that we're 9 days into a new administration, so the poor folks in the Watch Center hadn't experienced anything like this before. So they were trying to figure out information, which does, as an incident commander, bring a lot of pressure to you. The initial command post, the one on the left, is the north boathouse for the airport. That's roughly where the airport set up the command. They became the initial incident commander. DC Fire and EMS responders came to the other side of the river from JBAB, and they established a command post there with the Military District Washington folks that were already on scene from the fire department there, who had also responded. Shortly after that, the river branch was established to control the boats and the helicopters that were coming in and out. There was a lot of assets coming to the scene in that first hour. The two command posts were able to talk to each other, but they didn't really clearly unify command and operations during that first operational period. There's some good reasons for that, and we can sort through those as we go. But I arrived on the scene, and for the only time as the fire chief, I assumed the incident command. I was watching our operations chief, who would normally do this, and the phone calls from the mayor and the police chief and all the other things were taking away from their ability to manage. So he became the operations branch, and I became the incident commander. It became unified command for the district right away. The police chief was there, the emergency management director was there, the deputy mayor for public safety was there, JBAB was there. We got a lot of people in the same room to begin to sort through what the response looked like. I think the most important thing was we got to the hour mark, and we realized from our people in the field that there was not going to be any survivors. The weather conditions were horrendous. They were clear, based on what they were seeing, that the impact was really bad, right? A lot of trauma. So there were going to be no survivors. They'd scoured the surface of the ice and the water and determined there wasn't going to be any. So we sat down in the unified command post and said, what do we do now? And if normally our first priority is the victims in the water, who is our first priority now? And it was really easy to figure out, actually, when we're sitting there, and it was the families of these people in the water are our first priority. They need to be supported. We evolved a few incident priorities in the next hour, but that was the one we talked about. We wrote it down on our command board in the command bus, and that first priority never changed for the next 6 days. But one of those decisions then was, how are we going to handle the bodies in a dignified way with the best chance to get them back to their loved ones? And we started looking for a casualty collection point. And the normal casualty collection points we use had a couple of problems. One, the wharf is in front of a bunch of high-rise apartment buildings and hotels where everybody'd be able to see. Two, we needed a place where you could store bodies. And three, it needed to be accessible from the water. So we ended up selecting the Metropolitan Police Department's helicopter hangar on the banks of the Anacostia River. The other advantage to that site, and this is experience from other incidents, we needed to make sure all the bodies were going to be able to be accounted for. And in the state of Virginia, the bodies would either go to Manassas or Richmond, probably both places. So we didn't want that. We also didn't want any going to, say, National Harbor and ending up in Baltimore. So we knew if we could get them all at the DC Medical Examiner, we'd be able to keep an accurate count and keep the families informed of what we were finding. And that was a benefit of that location as well. So the casualty collection points established there. At about 10:20, the president tweets out that this crash is due to DEI. He doesn't tweet out prayers to the responders and the survivors. He tweets that out. When I get to the scene, the first thing I do with my phones is hand them to an aide to watch them. So I don't have a phone. I'm not watching social media, but I can see every phone in the command post light up. And it's other reporters trying to reach somebody in charge to figure out what we know that we aren't telling them already. Because they have this information straight from the president, and it is important, and we've got to be able to tell them that. So somebody walked over and showed me the tweet, and I'm like, this is sort of horrendous. It runs directly counter to incident priority number 1, which is take care of the families. So I talked to the police chief, we talked to the mayor, and we decided it was best to get in front of the families that were collected at National Airport and talk to them about what we knew and where we were in the incident. So the police chief and I rode over to the airport with the mayor meeting us there, and we get to the airport and we meet with the airport operations manager, the airport police chief, the airport fire chief, and representatives of American Airlines, so that we could talk to the families and get the message to them that we don't know anything about the cause of this air crash, that we're working hard to find their loved ones and get them back in touch with them. So that shifts our focus initially in the response, the unified command focus, not the operations. The operations keeps working. But unified command has a bigger picture to deal with, all in alignment with the incident priorities. So at that point in unified command, we sit down to hone our objectives the rest of the way. The first one is the one we've been talking about: recover, identify, and return the remains of loved ones to their families in a dignified manner. 2, support the NTSB in their investigation. By this point, they had shown up. The NTSB had talked to the Unified Command Post. They had explained that they were going to be in charge of this investigation and that they were in charge of the incident once it switched to a recovery operation. So we did that. One of the things, if you're ever involved in an NTSB investigation, make sure you document everything in real time. It will help you a lot in the long run of trying to figure out what we did. I'd been through a couple, so that was important to me. I'd been on the wrong end of that in the past. And then the third thing was, we've got to make sure that our responders are going to get the help they need. We knew that this event, like any other large-scale event or act of mass violence or something like that, will affect your people. Calls every day affect your people, and you put a big one out there, it has different mechanisms in how it plays with the brain. So we activated the DC Fire and EMS peer support team, and through Unified Command activated the teams and the departments that were responding. And we directed anybody that was leaving the scene. If you didn't have a peer support team at home, you could go to the DC Fire Academy and talk to a peer support team. Or if you were going back to a department that had one, you could go back there without going through it. But we wanted to make sure everybody leaving the scene at least had a chance to talk to peer support. So that began the beginning part. The next day for peer support, I'm just going to stay on this one for a second, is that the IAFF's president, Ed Kelly, came through the command post and he offered the support of their GO team. So they said a week later, they set up in a hotel in DC and saw about 245 people that had responded from across the region to the event, and they were having different problems with it, and helped connect them with care. And I can't say enough about President Kelly's commitment to that and making that happen. We just told him yes, and they took care of the rest of it, and that was a big deal. It also helped our people get support. Incidentally, DC Fire and EMS has had like 14 workers' comp claims out of this, and 14 people that were off for a significant period of time as they recovered from the trauma. All but one of those cases has been resolved favorably for the employee, and that's important. The other one's harder. They're all hard. All the mental health stuff is hard in our workers' comp situation. but I think we'll get there. So it's important to know that from the beginning that was there. The way that objective, though, started the event, why it was important that night is, can you imagine saying we're going to a recovery and everybody's version of going to a recovery operation is stopping work? Our people weren't ready to do that. Even though they knew there weren't going to be survivors, they needed to stay at work for their own health. And that's important to recognize. We can do it safely. It's going to be a dangerous job no matter what. But the least hazardous thing we could do was to let them keep working. They were already there. And that's important, I think. I think it's something for all of us to consider sometimes when we have an event like this. It's not easy. You can't just say, stop it, we'll come back at daylight. So the Unified Command Post at the airport, we met. That's that first picture on top. That's the initial airport folks with the mayor and talking through what the next part was going to be and how to unify the operations. So we decided at 7 o'clock the next morning, all the command posts would move into some space at the airport that the airport had offered up. And I was skeptical, I gotta be honest. It's 1:30 in the morning, it's nasty weather out. The logistics folks said, yeah, we can do that. And I said, yeah, okay, we'll see. And I went home and I took a shower, and when I came back at 7 in the morning, that's what that room looked like on the bottom. They got all the computers in there, the whiteboards, the sheets they needed to work through, and they had a command post up and running at 7 o'clock. And to me, the end of the first operational period is when the operation truly became unified. That first operational period, the operations branches were a bit bifurcated, but by that time they came together. And if you think about disaster response, where your resources are being outpaced by the incident, that's probably a pretty good outcome. Interestingly enough, while there were a lot of responders, probably over 300, 350 that night, and about 40 agencies represented, there was only about 80 people that night engaged in the water and at the casualty collection point. And those people were most exposed. The rest of us were on the shoreline. We could see it, but there wasn't anything we could do. And that'll come up later in terms of what do you do with resources? People that can safely operate boats, divers, people that work at a casualty collection point, they're a limited resource. And if you keep working them, there's no best practice. We tried to find a best practice for rotating people to help them. The divers and the boat folks are extremely limited. But in a casualty collection point, we had scientists telling us every answer from only use volunteers, rotate them every hour, rotate them after each body, let them work 12 hours, let them work 24 hours. There was no choice. There was no clear answer to the right thing to do for your employees there. So as the incident commander, we ultimately made the decision to work them on shifts and rotate them. One of the challenges we had is people felt they wanted to complete the mission and stay there, and that became a bit of a challenge. We would just send resources there and, you know, convince people to leave. But it was tough for those people.
In the hours after a regional jet collided with an Army helicopter over the Potomac, and as their rescue operation gave way to recovery, first responders searched for victims, wreckage, clues from underneath the water. A critical tool helped them do this work much faster.
And that's what you're seeing in these gold lines. Back and forth, sonar searches of the entire area here.
DC firefighter Jeff Leonard is describing how they deployed the department's sonar technology to scan the river floor on that first full day of the recovery.
Essentially, sonar is a flashlight.
A flashlight created using sound waves to sweep the bottom of the Potomac, making incredibly detailed maps of the wreckage just off Reagan Airport. That early effort gave them a great picture of what they couldn't see, an underwater photo album of debris, some huge.
So we're looking about 18 feet right here?
Some no bigger than your hand.
The equipment is so sophisticated that we're finding things the size of a telephone.
The technology is so good, it may have also uncovered tragedies lost decades ago when a plane crashed into the 14th Street Bridge in 1982, killing more than 70 people.
Older plane parts, for example, the speculation is that they may have been from the Air Florida crash about 40 years ago.
With the tool, DC firefighters, including CJ Isbell, were able to swiftly deploy divers to retrieve what they found following this January's collision.
We can essentially drop him right on top of the target.
Cutting what could have been a weeks-long operation into just days.
It did speed up the operation quite a bit.
They used it in tandem with a custom phone app developed the night of the crash to help document debris and instantly share its precise location with others. Leonard and Tim Hutchison with DC's technology office created the app to allow divers to photograph, geolocate, and quickly list hundreds of pieces of debris as they were found in real time.
Seeing personal belongings being pulled up was definitely a moment of pause, really hit home.
DC Fire commissioned the sonar equipment through a federal port security grant from FEMA a few years back, never knowing it would be used to help recover loved ones for families in a plane crash.
So I should have let in a little bit with that one before I jumped in. I don't know where the back button is here. That one, we had technology really help us in this crash. And that technology all came together during the response. So as a leader of an organization, you can't know everything. And you don't know everything. The reporter characterized it as a brand new app. It wasn't a brand new app. They modified an existing app. But what it did in terms of getting people back to their loved ones, getting victims back to their loved ones, it allowed us to better mark where everything was. And when a diver or sonar would find something we wanted to investigate, they could go back right to it without researching to get to it. And that really sped up our process over time. It also allowed us to find some things that were outside of what would have been the initial search zones. So the technology, having people that have initiative to fix problems, it was 2 or 3 days before I really understood what they were doing. And I think that's a credit to them. And it's a credit to their bosses that they pushed them to keep it working so that we could use that in the incident. So that was good stuff. They've received a lot of accolades for that. And anybody that brought a boat in got that app on their phone so they could capture the important images, not only for victim recovery, but every one of those things helped the NTSB. So I've talked a lot about what the first operational period looked like, but the rest of the operational periods were sort of interesting. Who's in charge always becomes a thing. And I mentioned that the NTSB had told the mayor, Mayor, we're going to be in charge once you go to a recovery. I'm skeptical of that as the fire chief. One of the things about incident command is you can't pass command to somebody that isn't ready to take it. And they had one person there, so that was my first red flag. The second red flag is, based on my experiences, they are not allowed to deal with a lot of the things that we were still dealing with. So that first press conference at 1:30 in the morning, even though we knew we were in a recovery mode, we did not announce that. And as the incident commander, it was my decision not to announce it because I wanted to see the site in daylight. I wanted to make sure that we could do a good transfer of command if that was going to be necessary. And I also wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to talk to as many family members as we could. But it's 7 in the morning, the next morning, the sun comes up and it's clear. There's not going to be any survivors. The news cameras can get really good shots of the crash site from a long distance away. So we give the news conference. We switch to a recovery mode. Our IAP reflects that. We've talked to as many family members as we can. And I go back to the command post to talk to the NTSB about, you're taking command now, right? And when I get there, the NTSB rep isn't in the unified command post. I'm like, okay, where is he? And nobody knew. So we waited, and we continued the operations, just working like you do at a normal incident. Who the incident commander is isn't all that important if everybody's working together, and they certainly were. Well, about 11, the NTSB guy comes in, and we're like, "Hi, Eric, you're in charge now. We're in recovery. What do you want to do?" "Oh, we can't be in charge." Like, "No, you told my boss that you were going to be in charge, and she instructed me to get out of the way. So what are you doing?" "Oh, no, the NTSB can't be in charge." Like, okay. And I'm getting confused. And a lot, this large group you saw in that command post is wondering what's going on. So we decided to go to a breakout room. I brought one of my assistant chiefs, the Metropolitan Police Department, the current police chief, Jeff Carroll, if you know him, he's like 7 feet tall, jolly green giant, red hair, and one of his SWAT commanders that sleeps in his tactical gear, into the meeting. I said, "Okay, I got muscle. What's going on?" And the NTSB comes in and said, "Okay, Eric, you told the mayor you were going to be in charge, and she's instructed us to get out of the way. What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, well, the NTSB's in charge." I'm like, "You said what?" I said, "Well, are you ready to take over?" "Well, we can't be in charge." So I'm confused, right? It's like talking to one of my kids. But you have to reset, and you have to figure out what he's trying to say, right? As a leader, when there's two ways in communications. You've got to figure it out. And he's trying to communicate with me, and I'm trying to communicate with him, but I don't know what we're saying. So we start over. Absolutely, the NTSB is in charge of the investigation. "Are you going to do anything with bodies?" This was the question. He says, "Oh, no, we don't do bodies." I said, "Okay, we do bodies. So anything that you need in Unified Command, we will make sure is a priority, and we will make sure it happens. But you got to stop saying you're in charge." Okay. And it was a little more painful than that, and the guy with the tactical gear certainly helps. But we go back downstairs, everything's good, and Eric says to me, "The reason I wasn't here is I'm fighting with the Coast Guard about space in one of the hangars to put the wreckage." I'm like, "Oh, that sounds like something Unified Command can handle." And we handle it. And NTSB becomes the advocate for everybody else for Unified Command after that. And all it was two people under a crap ton of stress not being able to communicate at first is what got us there. So that becomes a success story. Day 2. We're all out on the river, everybody's working, they're trying to do recovery. And the river branch, which is there's a boat in the middle, it's a dinner cruise ship that we've commandeered. They've got a command post on there so we can rotate divers in a nice warm environment, give them bathrooms, feed them, things like that. They're out there and they say, "We've been directed to report to the Unified Command Post at Hangar 7 by the Coast Guard." Like, "Oh, that's interesting." He says, "Aren't you Unified Command Chief?" "Yes, we're Unified Command Post in the main terminal. What's going on here?" And we tried to sort it out, but the long story short was that the Coast Guard, and we had an admiral with us the night of the crash and through the first operational period and into the second one. We had a representative in the Unified Command Post. A new Coast Guard team had come in with their cutters, they had blocked the river, and they had set up at their operating base what they considered to be the Unified Command Post. And that's not the way this works. So we reached out to them in Hangar 7 and said, "Look, we need to have a meeting." My crew, sensing that I wasn't in an accommodating mood, decided to go down there by themselves with the police department. And they had a long discussion. And eventually they came to the realization that Unified Command already exists. We're not transferring it anywhere to anybody. And that while the Coast Guard has all the authorities to shut down the river and the authority for cleanup and all of those things, they don't have any of the small craft there to do everything the Metropolitan Police Department's doing. They don't have any of the resources that the divers are doing on site at that point, that we're going to have unified command posts, and they're going to keep a rep in the unified command. So that was day 2. I really like what my crew did there in going down and talking through it. So that was good, but that conversation wouldn't have been successful without law enforcement, the Metropolitan Police Department, talking to law enforcement, Coast Guard, in the same language. I don't think the fire department would have ever gotten there. It was really getting the right people in the room to talk the same language. So day 3. Day 3, the Army Corps of Engineers shows up. What do you think happened? They're in charge, right? About 6 o'clock at night, they walk into the unified command post at the airport and say, okay, we got it. And they are, they're the best, right? And they are clearly here to work. They got the supervisor of salvage. That's a cool name, right? And they're all in their BDUs. They've got huge muscles and mustaches, and they all look like Popeye. And we knew they were coming from, they had just finished up cutting up the Francis Scott Key Bridge and getting it out of the water, so you know they're the best. They said, we got a plan. We're going to get all these aircraft out of the water over the next 2 days. Just get out of our way. We're like, wait a minute, that's not the way this works. We have unified command. And they said, no, that'll never work because we need all our people in the room. I'm like, no, not really. You just need a decision maker. We've got this other space for you. And they, to their credit, they went back and huddled and said, okay, we'll give it a try, but we've never done this before. And it won't work, but we'll give it a try. I'm like, okay, great. Oh, and by the way, in your lift plan, they had briefed us on the lift plan. Can you switch the helicopter and the plane around? We know we have 20 people still unaccounted for in the plane. And the plane's probably the only thing that wasn't wrong in this plane crash. And the families are waiting. Let's lift that first and leave the helicopter for second. And they're like, I don't know if we can do that, but we'll assess it. The next morning they came back, lifted the plane, and we were able to get those 21 victims out of that plane. Without that, we'd be days longer reuniting the loved ones. So all credit to the Army Corps of Engineers for the amazing work that they did and being adaptable, right? So why do I talk about those things? Let's see if we can get to the next slide. It's because all disasters and really all responses begin and end locally. I am not bashing our federal partners. Okay, I don't want anybody to take that away. The incident command system we have is the incident command system we have. It has limitations. If you don't practice it every day, you can't do it the way we are used to it. And since we are the first responders and the last responders, right? As late as a year later, the Metropolitan Police Department divers were still looking for wedding rings and watches that were important to family members. We're there long after our federal partners are gone, and we're there at the beginning before they get there. And that's an important thing. As a leader, it doesn't matter if it's a small community or a large community. We are the people that people look for to help handle the problem. And when our federal partners, who do very important things, right? What the NTSB does, nobody else can do. Nobody knows what they know about investigating plane crashes. Nobody has the resources they do. Nobody has the authority to shut down waterways and do all of the things that the Coast Guard does, and the funding, which is important. Nobody has the ability to lift planes and things like that out of the water like the Army Corps of Engineers. But those are their specialties. We do the other things. So as leaders, remember that. Don't be shy about it. Don't be obnoxious about it. But know that you have the authority because it's invested in you by your community. The mayor, it was nice to see the Ocean City mayor here a few minutes ago. I was talking to him backstage. One of the reasons this event was successful, I think, is that our mayor spent 12 of the first 24 hours in the command post saying, Chief, what do you need? Not do this, not do that. Chief, what do you need? And when she was able to take all the Situation Room calls off my desk, she was able to coordinate with American Airlines. She was able to coordinate with the people that were manage the media at that point was super important with her and her team. So big deal. Sean Duffy was the Department of Transportation Secretary. He'd been appointed less than 24 hours before this incident. I cannot say enough about how good he did when he showed up that night. I can't imagine coming out from the private sector and having to step into that situation and do well, and he did great that night. So all kudos to Mr. Duffy. At our press conference the first night, how many of you guys remember the press conference in New Orleans on New Year's Day after the attack where the guy drove past the police barricade into the parade and then got involved in a gunfight? That press conference was a disaster. I mean, it was everything you shouldn't ever do. And one of the problems there was the politicians talked. We had the Kansas City senators, or the Kansas state senators show up, U.S. senators, sorry, show up at the press conference at 1:30 and they wanted to speak. So we had a briefing with them. We told them we weren't ready to announce that there were no survivors. We put them at the end of the conference. We gave them a very narrow window to walk in. And they said, great. The first senator gets up. He does a good job. He takes an interesting thing, though, is he takes credit for shoehorning this flight into DCA, which landing spots are at a premium there. Congress can get involved and create one. That's exactly what happened. So this flight got shoehorned into a landing spot at DCA. The second senator gets up and starts off with a prayer for all the people, for all 67 victims of this plane crash. He's not explicit that they're all dead, but everybody in the room gets it. And, thank God our media didn't really press the issue. I think they understood, we were working them. They understood what was going on, but that had the chance to go sideways, and it just reiterates, no matter what you tell them and what they agree to, they're going to do what they want to do. Next morning, at the press conference, the Virginia congressional delegation shows up, and they want to talk about not the response, not the victims, but that they've been saying this is going to happen for a long time because there's too many planes coming into DCA. Not the appropriate time. Interesting aside, when you have the front row seat to watching all of that. Another interesting sort of political thing that came up was the location of the command post. Initially, the two commands and the consolidation at National Airport wasn't a big deal for anybody. But over 48 hours, some of the mayor's people were aggravating the mayor about the command post should be in D.C. It's a D.C. incident. As I tried to point out that Washington National Airport used to have a D.C. address, so maybe that was good enough. And I, as the incident commander, I was getting a lot of push from the mayor's team on that. And there was no other place to have it, let's face the facts. But you can't really defy your boss completely. So I agreed to keep looking at new places, and she agreed to stop asking about it, and that's how we resolved the command post thing. And I think you got to develop that kind of relationship with your leaders and people you report to, so that when you have a sticky situation, you can get through it. And I've already talked about the federal roles here a little bit.
Local fire and emergency responders there as we speak.
This is an all-out extreme emergency at Reagan Airport, and the water's just off of it here in Washington, D.C.
A massive response of first responders on both sides of the Potomac River here.
It's something you expect to see in movies.
movies, not in real life.
I haven't seen first responder response like this.
It's a highly complex operation. The conditions out there are extremely rough.
The people that sacrifice themselves to jump into that ice cold water to go through, the plane and the wreckage, there are no words to express our thanks for that. You helped bring our boy home.
All 67 lives lost January 29th were honored on the ice.
Skating legends coming together for a special show at Capital One Arena called Legacy on Ice.
So the community really came together to support the responders and support the families. And one of the things about the community, starting with the survivors, that I didn't know is that the NTSB expected the incident commander to speak to the families and keep them updated on the rescue and recovery operation. So the next morning, they let me know that they expected me to go up to Bethesda at 6 o'clock that evening to talk to the families that were assembled with the medical examiner. I've talked to plenty of families, one at a time or two at a time over the years. I've never done anything like that. There's no preparation for anything like that. That community response they talk about, especially Mr. O'Hara, talking about the people going into the water to look for their loved ones and recover them, was we went through all the stages of grief with the families, but at the end of the day, that's where all of them ended up. They were so thankful for the responders and what they did to get their loved ones back. It was sort of moving, and I think that's where a lot of my emotion comes from, in that is how much they appreciated us during their time of loss. And it's just an interesting experience. We all have different ones, but it is something I never expected. I've done a lot of things over the years in the fire service. That was not one that was ever something I expected. So in the aftermath of this, DC Fire and EMS, the NTSB's done an investigative report. It's got 74 recommendations to make our airways safer. That's sort of standalone. That goes in the news. It doesn't talk about the response. The DC Fire and EMS department did an internal one to talk about our response, and it identifies some highlights, and these are highlights. Incidentally, ours also has 74 recommendations, and that's a complete coincidence. But because the response generally went well, there's no real big smoking guns here. So the response was, we talk about professional response. We talk about technical capabilities existing, people working together, people know how to use them, and then we activated things like peer support. Those are the good things. The areas for improvement are really around how we coordinate. It calls out that we should have foreseen this, and we should have had a better plan to coordinate that initial incident command with the airport. It talks about the mutual aid, having 2 responses simultaneously to both sides of the river, things like that. It talks about relying on just a few people in logistics or in your technology fields, and you need more depth in those areas to get equipment. We had to send somebody down to South Carolina, I think, to pick up dive gear when we cut up all the dive gear that they were using. So, yeah, that just takes a toll. We also, on a very technical piece, need to make sure that our daily incident command briefings include all the divisions. A lot of times, because the river branch was so hard to get to, we didn't include them, and a lot of information got lost being relayed to them. So that's an area for us for improvement. The city also did an after-action report, and they call out the same things for fire and EMS. Continue to work on the regional mutual aid agreement, the CAD to CAD stuff that we do in the region, DC needs to do better at, so we understand the resources that are there. We need to update our water rescue plans to incorporate this scenario, things like that. No real smoking guns. I'd say it was good. The one thing that the citywide report calls out is the Joint Information Center. So in incident command classes, you've all taken them, we teach that we're going to establish a public information officer as part of the unified command. That officer is going to make sure they do briefings every 12 hours and that everybody's going to follow along, and that's going to be easy. The challenge is that that doesn't hold up once you have political people involved and a regional, say, Joint Information Center. And the Joint Information Center becomes important because our Joint Information Center in this incident that the mayor's office ran didn't want to do 12-hour briefings. And while I pushed back against that initially because my training says do this and my experience says if you don't give the media a story, you're going to be stuck with the story they find. Ultimately, the mayor was right. And when she didn't want to give briefings, it was because we didn't have anything new to report. And the only questions, because we did one of them, and we couldn't answer, we didn't have anything new, and the only questions they were asking were about the cause of the air crash and why the airport was allowed to do certain things, none of which were going to be answered at that time. So after that, we went on the mayor's cycle, and it was much better. And we used press releases to update body counts and things like that. The other lesson in all of those discussions was how you refer to bodies. And referring to bodies, recovered initially sounded like a good idea. It then became victims identified, because you could be collecting multiple parts of bodies from different people and not have a whole one. You had to identify how many victims. And then it was how many families have been notified. So in 6 days, they made the final notification. Metropolitan Police Department detectives made every one of those notifications, either in person or if the families weren't present, they did it by telephone. That's pretty amazing. What the detectives do, I don't think, they're special people. So that was pretty amazing. Thank God for them. Thank God for the medical examiner and everybody that came together. The FBI crime lab in Quantico brought DNA testing. Some of our regional partners around the region, there's a lot of technology, brought DNA testing into the police lab or into the coroner's office to help us identify the bodies. Without them, it wouldn't have happened. So that's a big deal. And then finally, a lot of people ask me my thoughts about leadership lessons from this. And at first I was uncomfortable with that. But I think, like all of us, we all showed up and did our job. But I have wrote some down and would like to pass some on from my experiences in writ large that were reinforced during this event. The first one is you are the leader you are at the time of the event. You're not suddenly going to get worse, and you're not suddenly going to get better. You are who you are. So you need to be working on it every day to get better, no matter who you are. And you know, I watched it at all levels. There are company level leaders that did great, and they always do great. There are company level leaders I would have liked to do better, but I would like them to do better all the time. So it's a takeaway from me that you got to continue to evolve as a leader, no matter who you are and what you do, to get better at that. So leading with empathy, understanding the situation is genuinely important to gaining trust with the people you're talking to. And as a leader, you're talking to a lot of people. When I did the press conferences there, the audiences weren't only the people watching on TV. The families asked me about things I said. They were appreciative of the empathy that I showed. And it allowed me to have trust with the family. So I think that's important. But my people and the other responders also needed that. They needed to know that we knew how hard it was for them and that we would say that. So that's important. This is sort of like the first one. Being a leader means that you have to fully commit to it. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It is all the time, even when you're supposed to be off duty. And if you're not, it's not only during the incident, it's taking care of your responders when they're having a tough day. DC Fire and EMS had 2 employees with family members on this plane. I know the fire service had some, in Maryland, had some people related to people on the plane. Those taking care of those people, leading across, it all takes time. It takes being sympathetic. It takes listening, and you got to do all of that. You got to trust your people, right? An incident's too big for you not to trust your branch directors, your unit leaders, to get the jobs done that need to be done. And when they're telling you something, you got to listen to them. They're telling you something for a reason. They're not just telling you to talk. You got to figure out what that is. And when I say figure out what it is, you got to listen to solve problems. The best example of that is in those unified command discussions with our partners, understanding their needs and assuring them that you can meet their needs without any problems. And I don't think we had any problems during this event in meeting all the different agencies' needs. So that's a good thing. Experience and expertise matters. I think expertise doesn't necessarily come from experience. You can teach the technical aspects of it, but experience is what happens when you try to do it and you learn it doesn't work. And experience matters. Now, there's always going to be somebody that has a short tenure somewhere and does a great job, but I couldn't imagine trying to do this without all the experiences I've had and with all the lessons I've learned from all of my mentors and peers and people that work for me over the years. So experience matters. And finally, leadership is political. Politicians, in a disaster, people want you to show up. They want you to kiss babies and tell them everything's going to be better. At this level, some of that messaging was super important. So you got to know that if you're going to be a leader. Even the volunteer fire chief at the slowest department in the state of Maryland has the same problem. They've got people that are looking to them for leadership, and they're looking for that. They want you to know somewhere along the way it's going to be okay. For me, if you go back and listen to those news conferences, what I wanted to do most importantly was acknowledge the responders. And if you look at the first news conference, I read every agency that was responding because I wanted to show, the question I was getting from a lot of people was who's here and are they working together to make it better? To make it better. That was the part I heard. So I read all those names. The second part was I wanted them to know how hard they were working. So I described the conditions on the water. And finally, when they asked the question, are you going to recover all the victims? Based on my experience, based on my expertise of that section of the waterway, I was confident we would. So I said we would. And those 3 messages, that we're working together, that it's very dangerous and we're going to have a positive outcome, even in a terrible situation, are really the difference between that and a lot of other incidents that happen. There's no other mixed messages in there. It was a very clear message and people could take it. So that's my leadership lessons. That's my presentation. And I'd like to thank you all for listening. Somebody's.
We're coming, buddy. All right, hold on, Chief.
Apparently, I ended a few minutes early.
Thank
you, sir.
Come on out this way, man. Okay. Chief Donnelly, you know, fantastic presentation. We pray that we never experience or see something like that again. But by the experiences that you've shown us, by the lessons learned from your experiences, we feel we're better prepared if something should occur. Thank you so very much for a great presentation.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
At this time, I'll call the secretary for the convention report, minutes from our previous 2025 convention.
Good morning, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, the minutes have been published. They're in your proceedings book, which has been handed out when you registered. Each delegate, each company has a copy of the minutes. Mr. President?
Do we have a motion to accept the minutes of the 2025 convention and conference? Your company, please. Ocean City moved. Do we have a second? Delbridge, okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I move that the minutes have been approved. At this time, we're going to call Rick Hemphill, who's the convention credential and registrar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Report of the Credentials Committee for 2026. There are a total of 348 companies in good standing as recorded by the Secretary. The Credential Committee reports that 210 of those companies in good standing are registered at the convention. There are a total of 20 past presidents registered at this convention also. At this time, each company is permitted 5 votes each and therefore can cast a maximum of 1,050 votes, and 20 past presidents allowed 1 vote each for a total of 1,070 votes possible cast at this time. Company registration is still open until 3 o'clock today. Thus, this number may change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hemphill. Thank you all that are attending. It's really a pleasure to have you here with us today. At this time, we'll have the report of the association officers. I will start off with the President's report. My report is located on page 29 of the convention book. Again, I thank everybody for your attendance. I especially thank our past presidents, our officers in the association for their support and their cooperation over the past year. A lot of work has been accomplished. I thank our staff, our executive director and assistant for the tremendous work that they've done in moving our office from 2130 Crofton in Crofton, Priestbridge to 2138. Tremendous experience in getting that done. So thank you all very much. At this time, report for the first Vice President, Bill Faust.
Good morning. First off, welcome to the convention. I would like to let you know my report is in the book this year. I would also like to thank the past presidents, along with all the senior members of the Maryland State Firefighters Association. I can't say enough about all the help and guidance you've given me this year. I would also like to thank Kate and Lynn for all the hard work they do. I'd like to thank the convention committee for the outstanding job they've done so far and everything that's ahead of us. Again, thank you all very much, and I look forward to serving as your president next year if everything works out. So thank you.
We'll now have our second Vice President, Lee Lutz.
Good morning, everyone. My report's on page 31 of the program book. I'd just like to extend my thanks to all the past presidents. They've been my rock. They've given me advice, and it's come freely. I've never had to worry about it. I'd also like to thank Bob Phillips and the Legislative Committee. I think they did a really bang-up job this year in the legislature. And one more group, Robbie Blackiston and the Convention Committee. I think he did a great job. And how about that parade in Berlin? And I'd also like to thank the Ladies Auxiliary for all their warm welcome everywhere I've gone to. And thank you very much.
Our Secretary, Doyle Cox.
Thank you, sir. You'll find a copy of my report on page 33. If you get a chance, read it, and thank you, and I'll be here next year to help you out again. Thank you.
Our Treasurer, Ron Sarnicki.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the convention as a treasurer. Our report from the finance team is on page 33 of the program book, but I got to say that the majority of the work is done by that entire team. I want to thank them for all they do. Thank the leadership for giving us the opportunity to keep the finances of the association in line. Have a great convention. We're here all to help. Please let us know if there's something we can do to make your experience even better. Thank you.
Our Financial Secretary, Mitch Vogt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Financial Secretary's report can be found on page 35 as part of the financial team report. Luckily, I stopped at the mailbox on Thursday on my way down. The last company paid their dues and also picked up some raffle money. So all dues have been paid for 2026. And don't forget to stop by the $10,000 raffle booth because somebody's got to win the money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Good push in there. Our Chief Chaplain, John Long.
My report's on page 37, and yes, we are continuing to pray for good weather for the rest of the week. Thank you.
The Chairman of our Trustees, Jeff Clements.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. President. The report for the Board of Trustees can be found on page 37, the convention book. There is one correction that needs to be made at the time of the report submitted. We did not have any line of duty death claims. However, we did receive one, and that was approved by the Board of Trustees last month. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. We have a report from our Executive Director, Kate. None at this time. At this time, will any committees that need to report outside of what has been posted in the convention book? Hearing none, we'll move on to the nomination of officers.
Let's do a quick update from the convention chair. All right.
Okay, is our convention chair available?
He's right here.
Right here, okay. We do have one. Thank you. Robbie Blackston.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the beach. We kicked off the convention on Saturday with the nice parade in Berlin. Participation was up. We had about a 2-hour parade, those who were in attendance, and congratulations to all winners. Thanks to the group the parade group that worked hard to make that happen. Also, we had a huge success at the OC Downs. That was a sponsored event afterwards for our awards. So, our memorial service attendance last night, there was about 1,000. I'd like everybody to take the opportunity to visit our exhibits, take any training that's available, and thank the people that you see working around, working behind the scenes. There's a lot of time and effort, whether it be the convention committee members, the GO team members. So we just like to thank those that make this happen. And on one last note, the Fire and EMS service is sitting here today, and all of us that's in Ocean City are invited to a reception tonight at 8:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. at Rope Walk on 82nd Street. So hope to see most of you there. Be safe and have a great convention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Convention Chair. I might add, this is his first year in this position. He's done an absolutely fantastic job. Thank you, Robbie. Again, any other committees? Hearing, seeing none, at this time we'll move into nominations of officers. So, nominations of officers. The first officer would be, for candidate would be, for president would be William H. Faust III. I haven't, I do, okay. Nominating Mr. Faust? Okay. Malcolm Faust.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. President Simpson, officers and members of this great association. I'm Malcolm Faust Jr., past chief, life member of the Sellersville Volunteer Fire Company. At this time, I'd like to nominate William Bill Faust to the office of president. Mr. Faust is a past president, life member of Sellersville Fire Company. He's been with the executive committee in the past and is currently the first vice president. So I proudly nominate him to the office of president. I'd like to call on Jesse Downey, past chief, for the second. Yeah, take my glasses.
Good morning. I, Jesse Downey Sr., second the nomination of William Bill Faust for the office of President of the Maryland State Firefighters Association with the following seconds: his wife Joanne, his daughters Nicole, Megan, and Kristen, grandkids Collie, Mason, and the newest Sellersville Volunteer Fire Company cadet Jacob. The Sellersville Volunteer Fire Company, retired captain from New York Fire Department Richard Melez, Queen Anne's County Fire EMS Commission, Kent County Fire Chiefs Association, Eastern Shore Association President Kevin Kerr, Caroline County Chiefs, Washington County President Charles Simpson, second Vice President Lee Lutz. The following past presidents that would like to second the motion are Bob Cumberland, Bernie Smith, Phil Herlock, Steve Cox, Roger Steger, Gene Worthington, Robert Jacobs, Paul Sterling, Frank Underwood, Dewell Cox, Dave Lewis, John Denver, Dave Keller, Johnny Roth, Michael Davis, Mark Bilger, Joe McCrae, Ben Kurtz, Eric Smothers, and Skip Carey. Executive Committee members: Victor Whipple, Chip Jewell, Tim Dayton, Bob Phillips, Buddy Sutton, Doug Simpson, Randy Smith, Randy Beavers, Dale Fishhack Jr., and Board of Trustees Jeff McClemens, Tom Mattingly Jr., Teresa Collins, and Robbie Blackston, and Convention Go Team Richard Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Are there any other nominations for the office of President? Are there any other nominations for the office of President? Are there any other nominations for the office of President? I have a motion that nominations for President be closed. Is there a second? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Nominations closed. I now open the floor for nominations for the office of First Vice President of the Maryland State Firefighters Association. The floor will recognize MSFA parliamentarian, past president of Glendale Fire Association, Harv Woods.
Thank you. Mr. President, officers, distinguished guests, brother and sister firefighters, it is an honor and a pleasure to be here today to offer in nomination the name of Lee A. Lutz for the office of First Vice President of the Maryland State Firefighters Association. Lee needs no introduction. We all know of his management experience, his time on the executive committee, and a number of other things that make him very qualified for this position. We urge your support. We thank you.
I now call on President of Glendale Fire Association, Danny Stallings.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Danny Stallings, President of Glendale Fire Association, and I'm here today to second the nomination for Lee A. Lutz for the office of First Vice President of the Maryland State Firefighters Association. I knew I was going to screw that up. Along with the following: MSFA past presidents Mark Bilger, Rick Blair, Skip Carey, Doyle Cox, Steve Cox, Bob Cumberland, John Denver, Mike Faust, Robert Jacobs, David Keller, Ben Kurtz, David Lewis, Tom Mattingly, Joel McCrae, Eric Smothers, Bernard Smith, Roger Steger, Frank Underwood, and Gene Worthington. MSA President Charles Simpson, First Vice President Bill Faust. MSFA Executive Committee members including Randy Beavers, Buddy Sutton, Randy Smith, Chip Jewell, Tim Dayton, Malcolm Faust, Doug Simpkins, past Executive Committee Chair Robbie Blackenston. The Allegheny Garrett County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association, Jonathan Dayton, President, and Allegheny Garrett Volunteer Fire Association, past President Rod Bowser. The Anne Arundel County Volunteer Firefighters Association, the Prince George's County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association, Prince George's County President Donald Wells, First Vice President William Cunningham, Second Vice President Steve Hamrick, past President and MSFA Executive Committee member Vic Whipple. The Baltimore County Volunteer Firemen's Association, the Montgomery County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association, the Eastern Shore Volunteer Firefighters Association, Kevin Kerr, President, Maryland Fire Chiefs past President Hugh Owens, the Glendale Fire Association Financial Officer Sherry Stallings, past President, Ladies Auxiliary of Maryland State Firefighters Association, Elaine Huttenlock, and daughter and Secretary, Ladies Auxiliary of Southern Maryland Volunteer Firefighters Association, Lisa Free. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for the office of First Vice President? Are there any other nominations for the office of First Vice President? Are there any other nominations for the office of First Vice President? I have a motion and a second to the nominations be closed. Hearing no other, I'll motion that approved. I will now open the floor for nominations for the office of Second Vice President. The floor recognizes Richard Brooks III.
Good morning. This morning I have the honor of doing something that I haven't done for 30 years. I stand before you this morning as a member of the Waterwitch Fire Company, a member of the Hartford Cecil Firemen's Association, and a longtime delegate of this association. I take great pride in placing the name of Chief Wayne L. Tome Sr. on the floor for office of Second Vice President of the Maryland State Firefighters Association. Chief Tome has dedicated his entire adult life to service of others. He has tirelessly worked to protect the people of Cecil County, Hartford County, and Baltimore County. He chose to highlight his service by dedicating his education to emergency medical services and progressing through the licensing level through nationally registered EMTP. He has served the Maryland State Firefighters Association as chair of the EMS committee with distinction, and such distinction that he has been recognized as chairman emeritus of our EMS committee. In his home company, he has served as firefighter, paramedic, EMS chief, and president. His administrative prowess is recognized all through the Waterwitch Company and fire apparatus, ambulances, and the buildings. In government, Chief Tome has served as councilman, commissioner, and mayor of the town of Port Deposit. Through all of this, he has maintained an active response profile in both fire and EMS. It has been through his leadership that the Waterwitch Fire Company maintains an above 95% average of all volunteer EMS response rates. I urge each delegate to please take notice of this exceptional resume and support the ballot in favor of Wayne L. Tome Sr. for Second Vice President of this great association. Thank you.
I recognize Wayne L. Tome Jr., Fire Chief, Waterwitch Fire Department, for a second.
Good morning, everybody. On behalf of the Waterwitch Fire Company, I'm proud to nominate my father, Wayne L. Tome Sr., for Second Vice President of the Maryland Firefighters Association.
Are there any other seconds to the nomination?
The additional seconds, Mr. President: Mark Bilger, past president, and a long list of past presidents: Richard Blair, Skip Carey, Doyle Cox, Stephen Cox, Bob Cumberland Jr., Michael Davis, John Denver, Michael Faust, Philip Herlock, Robert Jacobs, David Keller III, Benjamin Kurtz, Dave Lewis, Thomas Mattingly Sr., Joel McCrae, Johnny Roth, Bernard Smith, Eric Smothers, Roger Steger Jr., Paul Sterling Jr., Frank Underwood, Gene Worthington, Charles Simpson Jr., William Faust, Lee Lutz, Jeff Clemens, trustees Teresa Collins, Tom Mattingly Jr., Timothy Robbie Blackston, Financial Secretary Mitch Vogt, Treasurer Ron Sarnicki, Chief Chaplain John Long, Executive Committee members Vic Whipple, Bob Phillips, Timothy Dayton, Chip Jewell, Malcolm Faust, Dale Fishhack, Randy Beavers, Doug Simpkins, Buddy Sutton, Randy Smith, Robert Muller, President of the Cecil County Firemen's Association, Jessica Reel, Vice President, Walter Abrams Sr., past President or past Fire Chief of Waterwitch, Kerry Abrams, Secretary of Waterwitch, Donald Poyce Jr., EMS Chief of Waterwitch, Glenn Resnick, past President of the Baltimore County Volunteer Firemen's Association, Tom Morris, Fire Chief of Chesapeake City, Jeff Ritter, President of Chesapeake City, Herman Schweers from the Level Volunteer Fire Company, Mary Schweers from Level, Sam Sowers, past Chief of the Darlington Fire Company, Ron McElwee, Chief of the North Point Edgemere Fire Company, Gary Bott, Assistant Chief at Charlestown Fire Company, Bill Streaker, President of Northeast. Paul Frazier, President of Perryville. Richard Hall, past Chief of Perryville. Johnny Jones, past President of Perryville. Howard Reel, Fire Captain of Perryville. Chelsea McKinney, EMS Captain of Perryville. Steve Barry of the Rural Water Supply Committee. Past Chief Bill Lay of the Joppa Magnolia Volunteer Fire Company. And Kevin Kerr, the Eastern Shore Volunteer Firemen's Association President. Thank you, Mr. President.
Do you need a glass of water after that? Are there any other nominations for the office of Second Vice President? Are there any other nominations for the office of Second Vice President? I have a motion and a second to close nominations. Any discussion? So moved.
If you're dying because you haven't any blood, I'm asking why have
At this time, I call for any nominations for the office of MSFA Financial Secretary. Are there any nominations for the office of MSFA Financial Secretary? The floor recognizes Ron Sarnicki, Treasurer for the Maryland State Firefighters Association.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning again. I guess I was just up here a couple of minutes ago. As the treasurer of the Maryland State Firefighters Association, I want to wish you a good morning, and to all the officers, past presidents, delegates, and alternates of the 134th Annual Convention and Conference. It's an honor to stand before you this morning and submit the name of Mitch Vogt of the Jarrettsville Volunteer Fire Company for the position of Financial Secretary for this great association. I agree. Mitch has been serving in this position since 2012, a total of 14 outstanding years of service. And he and I are on a multi-year rotational cycle for serving in the positions we hold. And this year, he is required to run for another term in order to stay in office. Mitch has held many leadership and managerial positions, which include those in his individual company, his county association, and within the Maryland State Firefighters Association. In all of those roles, he has demonstrated excellent qualities to fulfill the duties and responsibilities of the positions he's been asked to serve. Since the formation of the MSFA finance team, Mitch has taken a very active role in carrying out the fiduciary responsibilities entrusted to him and has been a valuable asset to the team. I have personally been very pleased to have him as a member of the finance team and to have the opportunity to work with him on various financial matters of this organization, and most of all, to have him as a friend. Having said all of this, I ask that you lend your support to Mitch and re-elect him to the position of Financial Secretary for the Maryland State Firefighters Association. Thank you.
Seconding the nomination, the floor recognizes Steve Cox, past president, Maryland State Firefighters Association.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's an honor for me to stand before you and second the nomination of Mitchell Vogt for Financial Secretary. Mitch and I have worked together for over 50 years, not only as Jarrettsville Fire Company and Bel Air Fire Company, back when he was chief. All through the years we've worked together, most importantly, recently as Financial Secretary and as Budget Committee Chair, we've worked together and maintained a balanced budget for the association along with the treasurer. Mitch has proven his ability to carry out the duties of Financial Secretary, and it's an honor for me to second the nomination of Mitch Vogt for Financial Secretary. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations for Secretary, Financial Secretary? Are there any other nominations for Financial Secretary? Hearing none. I have a nomination, or I have a motion and a second. Nominations be closed. With no discussion, motion's approved.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, thank you, Mitt.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. This time, I open nominations for the office of Chief Chaplain of the Maryland State Firefighters Association. Okay, I have nominations from Jeff Olson, Chief Ferndale Volunteer Fire Company. Jay, excuse me, Jay.
That's all right.
I'm sorry.
Morning. I am Jay Olson, Chief of the Ferndale Volunteer Fire Company. The Ferndale Volunteer Fire Company takes great pride in submitting the name of Reverend John F. Long, Jr. for the office of Chief Chaplain of the Maryland State Firefighters Association. John has held this office since being elected in 2005 and has performed his duties associated with the office to the best of his abilities. He is serving as the president of the Ferndale Volunteer Fire Company. He has 51 years of fire service experience and has held every line officer position. John has shared his knowledge of chaplaincy throughout the Mid-Atlantic region as an instructor for the Federation of Fire Chaplains, where he holds a certification in advanced chaplaincy. He presently serves as the president of the Federation of Fire Chaplains. It is with great pride that the Ferndale Volunteer Fire Company nominate Reverend John F. Long for office of Chief Chaplain.
Thank you, Jay. Seconding the nomination, I have past president of Maryland State Firefighters Association, Ben Kurtz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. It's an honor and a privilege to stand before you this morning and second the nomination of Chief Chaplain John Long. As Jay has addressed his acolytes that Chaplain John Long has done for the Maryland State Firemen's Association, it's indeed, I want to thank you.
Are there any other nominations for the office of Chief Chaplain? Have a move. The nominations closed and a second. Those in favor? Motion's passed. I now open nominations for the office of trustee in the Maryland State Firefighters Association. At this time, I have a nomination by Doug Alexander, past chair, Board of Trustees, Mount Airy Volunteer Fire Department.
Whatever. Thank you, Mr. President. It's my great pleasure today to nominate Jeffrey A. Clements for election to the Board of Trustees for the Maryland State Firefighters Association. Jeff is currently the chair of the MSFA trustees and has chosen to run for another 5-year term. He has served as a trustee following the untimely death of his uncle Danny Carpenter and completed his term. Jeff then ran for a spot on the Board of Trustees and was elected and has served ever since. He has been rock solid in his work ethic and support for the business of the MSFA trustees over the past 8.5 years. He's been chairman of the trustees for the past 2 years. Jeff has also served on the MSFA Budget and Revenue Committee, Transportation Committee as tag coordinator, Fire Prevention Committee, where he played a big role in the residential sprinkler initiative of years past, and the Risk Watch Subcommittee. He was inducted to the MSFA Hall of Fame in 2025. Jeff has not only served the MSFA heavily, but also his home company, the Potomac Heights Volunteer Fire Department and Rescue Squad, where he has served as president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, assistant treasurer, board of directors, fire lieutenant, and fire sergeant. Jeff has also been very active in the Southern Maryland Volunteer Firemen's Association, where he has served as president, first vice president, second vice president, and several committees. He was also inducted into the Southern Maryland Hall of Fame in 2019. Jeff has also been active in the Charles County Volunteer Firemen's Association, where he served as the fire prevention officer and was instrumental in getting the residential fire sprinkler code passed in Charles County. He also served on the LoSAP board there. In conclusion, it is with great pleasure that I bring the name of Jeffrey A. Clements to the nomination for the MSFA Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Seconding the nomination, I have Kevin Grinder.
Good morning. On behalf of the officers and members of the Potomac Heights Volunteer Fire Department and Rescue Squad, I'd like to second the nomination for Jeff Clements to the office of trustee of the Maryland State Firefighters Association. Jeff is a past president of our department and the past president of the Southern Maryland Volunteer Firemen's Association. Jeff currently serves as the chairman of the trustees, and it is an honor to nominate him for another 5-year term. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Are there any other nominations for the office of trustee? Are there any other nominations for the office of trustee? I have a motion that the nominations be closed. And a second. Motion's carried. At this time, I call Roger Stager, past president, for convention location for the 2027 convention.
2028, sir.
Excuse me. 20.
They already got next year's done.
Oh,
What he
2028.
just told me back there.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Good morning. Roger Stager, Ocean City Fire Department. I'd like to make a motion that our 2028 Maryland State Firefighters Association Convention and Conference be held in Ocean City, Maryland. Steve Cox on second. Somebody hollered.
I have a motion that was seconded by Steve Cox, I believe.
Second the motion.
Okay. I have a motion and a second.
Get that other seconder on the record.
Who's the, who was the second?
Skip Carey.
Skip Carey? Okay. Any other nominations for a location? Hearing none, have a motion and a second. Motion's carried.
Bernie Smith, oldest president past president of the MSFA.
At this time, I'm going to introduce our most senior, oldest past president of the Maryland State Firefighters Association, Bernie Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is my honor to make a motion that the secretary cast a ballot for all the unopposed offices and the president cast a ballot for the secretary. Do we have a second?
Go ahead and get theirs. Get theirs. That's fine.
Okay, who was the second? I have a motion and a second. Is there any opposition? All in favor of the motion, aye? Motion's carried. Oh, you'll love this. Okay. At this time, I declare the 134th convention in recess. Call again at 1 o'clock.